The year is 2012. Super Monkey Ball has gone from one of the most well-regarded game series of the 6th generation of video game consoles, especially the Nintendo GameCube, to just another largely forgotten Sega IP. After a rocky attempt to maintain the series after its original development team moved on to the Yakuza series, Super Monkey Ball was largely reduced to a shell of its former self. While intermittent releases would make their way to systems over the years, an ill-fated PS Vita game, Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits, would become the series' last new release of both the decade and the foreseeable future. 2 years after this, in 2014, something happened that would change Super Monkey Ball forever. It wouldn't come from Amusement Vision, nor Sega in any capacity, but rather dedicated fans, ready to make the Monkey Ball games they always wanted to see. Welcome to the world of Super Monkey Ball Romhacking.
I'm Misc.
My name is Interval.
Hello everyone, my name is Sega the Saga.
My name is Aaron. I go by Charum, the official Charum, or honestly even just Aaron.
My name is Brandon. My gamer tag is Brandon SMB.
I'm Bomb Squad. I also go by the Bomb Squad.
My real name is Andrew. My IGN is Dairude.
My name is Walker. My gamer tag is also Walker, but without the E.
Hello, I am Nambo.
So I am Ike SMB.
Hi, I'm Kutzman, which, it's my gamer tag. It's not my real name, obviously.
The timeline for Monkey Ball Romhacking begins in June of 2014, when user YoshiMaster96 first showcases his work to the romhacking.net forum. Custom level modifications in both Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. As with any early alteration to a game ROM, especially with games never released for PC, the early level alteration was crude and barely functional. There was even a point in time where textures and level collision were not connected, as the game stores that information in two separate files. Eventually though, basic tools for level creation were produced.
Basically, you just create a regular mall, like an OBJ, it's pretty standard. That part's the easy part. The other part was you have to place objects in the scene. Before I had a text file that you'd put into a command line program to do that, but as things progressed, now we have GUI stuff for that, so.
Kit, one of the most influential Monkey Ball speedrunners to ever exist, created this series called Super Monkey Ball Maker, and it was just a little series showing off levels that Kit had created and wanted to show off to the world. And a lot of people were really interested, hey, I want to make these levels too.
And it was then that Monkey Ball Romhacking enters its first generation. This was the time frame spanning from YoshiMaster's original work all the way to October 12th of 2016, wherein Krabs released his work. It's at this time that we begin to see level modders attempt to take the game's usable mechanics to their limit, as well as attempts to push the limits of level geometry. While the number of tries that level modders could use to build a level was paltry by modern standards, the employment of complex and awkward structures was still fairly widespread, often being used to illustrate the way it affected movement. There were also other ideas that were used at this time that are largely antiquated by today's standards, notably bumper jumps. These particular hellspawn took advantage of the never officially utilized top collision of the bumper obstacle, wherein if fallen onto in a near-perfect way, the bumper will propel you upward. This trick, while admittedly intriguing, is a nightmare to experience and play without highly specialized placement and purpose. These days, a system for placing dedicated jump platforms has been introduced, offering creators an option to tweak their jump altitude to what best suits the level design, and offer players a way to jump in levels that's nowhere near as frustrating. And that's just one example. Tons of early, more antiquated level ideas have been modernized into newer, more professional-looking form. Almost all of the level modding from this time was done to the first Monkey Ball game, as opposed to its sequel. Before Workshop 1 became standard, essentially all tools were made with SMB1 in mind, leaving SMB2 behind until then. This had the unfortunate side effect of leaving Monkey Ball 2's portals and switches dormant, only being introduced around 2018. Nonetheless, there are some surprisingly well-crafted levels from this time period, in spite of the massive limitations and barriers to entry there were at the time. Notably, the levels here that use the starting gates all hold up rather well. There's also some charming, if crude, attempts at shading and custom textures long before the game's lighting could be edited, and therefore properly utilized. If you have any interest in these, in the words of Yokai Jesus, crusty early levels, I recommend checking out Super Monkey Ball Gold and Platinum. They're compilation packs of everything that came from this era, making the process of playing them tremendously easier. Regardless, we've now reached October 12th of 2016, where the era of Krabs begins. It might seem odd to call this the era of Krabs when you look at what actually came out during this time. A whopping 1 of these was made by Krabs, and it's only 20 levels. Well, and bear in mind that before this, these were the best looking levels. Take a look at these. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? Krabs made levels with such a high degree of polish both in their level design and their aesthetics that neither would be topped for 2 whole years. Sadly, Krabs drifted away from the Romhacking scene after an incredible set of 20 levels, but his work had an undeniable impact. Only a few months later, Community Pack 1.0 would be released. This was the first ever attempt from the Monkey Ball community to develop a version of Monkey Ball 2 that contained entirely fan-created levels. It's honestly pretty remarkable that even this early on, there were level packs of this scale. But then again, a solid chunk of these are just far earlier levels from the pre-Krabs days, compiled into one massive release. Still, creator Pseudonymous BN first made their mark here, so that's neat. This was also the time frame wherein Cherem first began development of Banana Bash, and wherein Sega the Saga began development of Super Monkey Ball Dimensions. The first community pack was an undeniable landmark, but it took a team of 26 creators to get us here this early. As you can imagine, a single person developing a pack of this scale, all on their own, was probably a few years off, right? Logic would dictate yes, but as we're about to see, this particular individual has no problem defying logic and expectations. For better or for worse. Just a mere 2 months after a massive team of 26 developers managed to pull off a full game alteration, one of those 26 would do it all on his own. NGUU 2055. Okay, that's not entirely fair. While by this point in time every level in the game could be replaced, NGUU 1 wasn't 100% original. Even the most generous interpretation puts the stage count at 58 original levels, with the least generous count coming to only 30. Still, I don't want to rag on NGUU too much. What he has here is still, in my eyes, somewhat impressive for the time, and should be respected as such. Near the end of the year, and the first few days of 2018, Community Pack 1.5, 3 additional NGUU packs, and a few creator debut packs would be released. The former was a complete overhaul of the previous entry with new creators and new levels, while the NGUU packs, well, NGUU Story and Arcade are alright enough in respect to their release time, with one getting a pretty solid update not long after it was released. NGUU 2, however, was largely considered contentious even at the time of its release. As for those creator debuts, only 4 would continue to evolve into later generations. Those were Monkey Ball Ultra, Banana Bash, Dimensions, and Super Alex Ball. Ultra would go dormant after its March 2018 update, while Banana Bash and Dimensions would undergo extensive and multifaceted development cycles for many years. Super Alex Ball, though? That became the next era-defining Romhack, Monkey Ball. We'll get to that later, though. All you need to know for now is that tools continue to improve, notably when members like the Bomb Squad began developing quality of life improvements. The use of switches and portals also became standard around this time, becoming almost as trivial as placing bananas with modern tools.
I ported and rewrote a tool that is a level editor plugin for Blender, originally developed by Crafted Car, who's another wonderful member of the hacking community. Tool's known as Blend to SMB stage. I also updated the back end of this tool, which is the SMB Workshop 2 tool, which is quite commonly used, and in fact it's pretty much essential for level creation. Some of the things I've done, I've added support for new features such as animated backgrounds, JAMA bars, which are the punchy things in SMB1 that everyone seems to hate, texture scroll, dynamic shadows, transparency, custom fog. I've also done some work that has allowed for more complex level animation to be possible. Most recently, I've been doing work on custom monkey race and monkey golf levels, some of which have been showing up in some of the newer packs. I think Cherum's latest pack has it, NGUU's latest pack has it, stuff like that.
Regardless, we're going to pause the history lesson for now and shift gears into a more in-depth analysis. As from the Monkey Ball era onward, the standard for level design and aesthetics has become high enough to be worth consistently delving into. Before we can do that though, we have to categorize the over 50 ROM hacks we'll be going over. Let's get into it. Over the past 6 months or so, I've been in the process of developing a spreadsheet that has every Monkey Ball ROM hack. This goal, while perhaps a little misguided at first, eventually culminated into what you're seeing on screen now. A quick thanks to everyone who helped me confirm or deny their info on this sheet, and a thanks as well to those working on the Wiki, my primary tool for compiling all this information, outside of my own testing. After significant deliberation, I have decided that the ideal starting and ending points for this retrospective will be January 5th of 2018 and December 31st of 2020, respectively. These times were chosen to coincide with what could be considered generations 3 and 4. Ending at the year mark will also make future videos much easier, and to the endpoint being what it is. Still, if a ROM hack was released from within this time frame and receives an update after it, I'll look at the latest version of said ROM hack. However, if a ROM hack was in development during this time frame, but didn't see an official release until 2021, I'm afraid it'll have to wait. Sorry, Gemmod. Nonetheless, later projects will also get their due. Trust me. But for now, let's focus on what's been released in SMP ROM hacking over the last 3 years. Most of these Monkey Ball ROM hacks are custom level packs, featuring anywhere from 1 level replacement to more stages than Super Monkey Ball Deluxe. Overall though, most ROM hacks are 30 stages or less, although many of them are still in development. Also, any demos that contain more than 10 stages was included, but demos containing less than that were not looked at for this video. They're in the spreadsheet though. Unfortunately, there was also a small handful of build files that either didn't work or weren't configured very user-friendly to begin with. There was also a few ROM hacks that just had broken links, so I won't be showcasing either of those here. If anyone has a complete and working ISO for the ROM hacks on your screen, let me know in the comments or email me a link to either a Google Drive or Mega Download for them. Even with those unavailable, we still have over 50 ROM hacks to cover. So let's go over the categories we'll be discussing today, starting with the non-level mod ROM hacks. First, we have Unofficial Ports with 2 entries. Second, we have Control Modifications with 3 entries. And third, we have Miscellaneous Alterations with 3 entries. From there, we have the level pack categories. Fourth, we have small packs with 19 entries. Fifth, we have larger scale packs with 4 entries. And sixth, we have complete packs. Complete packs have to either A, have a complete story mode, or B, have a complete set of challenge modes. Or both. There's also the category of cancelled ROM hacks, which I'll explain more once we get there. There are also the aforementioned small demos, not working packs, and post-Community Pack 2020 releases, aside from updates. Lastly, there's the special case of Banana Bash, which I'll save for the complete packs discussion. Nonetheless, these remaining criteria account for the remaining ROM hacks, of which we'll only be looking at the 5 related to Banana Bash. So without further ado, let's get into our first category. So this one only has 2 entries, but both of them are pretty much complete game overhauls in their own right. The first is Nonakin 15 Super Monkey Ball Arcade, a complete reskin of Super Monkey Ball 1, while the second is Super Monkey Ball Deluxe in SMB 2, which imports every single level from Super Monkey Ball Deluxe and puts it back into the GameCube version of Super Monkey Ball 2. Starting off with the arcade mod, I have to admit I'm confused by a lot of the design choices made here. I was originally expecting this one to be a highly accurate version of the arcade game graphically, but in actuality, it takes a lot more liberties than it initially lets on. The Skyworld theme looks fine, but bonus stages aren't the tan color they are in the actual release. I like the dark blue they chose here, but it just isn't accurate. This is even weirder when you look at the SMB credits minigame, where I'm pretty sure they used the original floor from Arcade. From there you get a decent looking recreation of the water level theme, but then you reach the desert, which just looks gross. The brassy tones of the original made it the only stage that looked arguably better than its super counterpart, making this even more disappointing. Arctic and Storm look fine, but Interstellar had some weird graphical problems / choices. Truth be told, I'm not sure which. Master looks good though, even better than Super in my opinion. Easily the worst loss though isn't actually the graphics, it's the music. Arcade has, in my opinion anyway, the best score in the entire series, so it's a real shame to not have that here when the other hacks actually included it, proving that it can totally be done. Overall, I can only recommend this one for the Master Stage's new aesthetic. Beyond that, just use Steam Mule if you want to try Monkey Ball Arcade. Fortunately, the second hack fares a lot better, but admittedly had a lot more people backing it. Besides cases like the Community Pack, this Romhack had the biggest development crew out of any in this retrospective. Nonetheless, this hack is rather simple in concept and executed rather well. As stated in my first Monkey Ball video, this hack includes every single level that was present in Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, and via the SMB2 game engine, does so with performance identical to the Xbox release, although with some tweaks to overall improve the aesthetic, and even performance in some cases.
At first, the whole thing started as, a pack just including the deluxe exclusives. Then it kind of expanded a little bit, but since we figured out how to extend difficulties. We struggled at first to port a few levels because of how the animations are. We had to end up making more tools for stuff like that, converters. Converting Monkey Ball 1 or Deluxe stages directly into Monkey Ball 2 file format.
Unfortunately, other features like competition mode have not been reincorporated yet, so this purely exists as a port of levels into SMB2. In regards to that goal though, it does an exceptional job, so it maintains my seal of approval. Alright, porting content from other games is one thing, but from here on we're working with content developed at least in part by creators from scratch. And while that mostly applies to level modding, we've got a small handful of other mod genres to look at first, starting with control modifications. In this category, we have a trilogy of physics tweaks that were done to Monkey Ball's game engine. One doubles velocity, one maintains jump momentum no matter what, and one maintains velocity no matter what. As far as I'm aware, no ROM hacks utilize these control concepts, although I'd like to see something that could use these control schemes in the future. At least for now though, these three just amount to tech demos for future possibilities. Besides that, we've got three miscellaneous hacks to look at: Twix Ninja's Fun Mode, Professor Rain's SMB2 Encore, and SMB2 and SMB1 Style. The first is just a mod that changes the timer on the SMB2 Master Mode levels, while the second just retextures the SMB2 level themes. The other, however, is really unique and surprisingly ambitious, although due to its scale we'll actually save this one for the complete packs discussion, as it contains a complete challenge mode. For now, all you need to know is that it's extremely impressive in overall polish, but features an unfortunately common issue present in many of these larger ROM hacks: the Desert Heatwave Bug. You'll notice on the Romhack spreadsheet that one of the categories is widescreen compatibility, as SMB2's widescreen support is something that I regularly use whenever possible, as I'd assume you guys do too. Besides the SMB1 ROMs that don't support widescreen to begin with, all of the SMB2 ROM hacks at least partially support this feature. Besides most of the desert stages. This has to do with the Desert Heatwave effect built into most of the desert stages, which, regardless of what aspect ratio you're in, generates in 4:3 and stretches across the widescreen image if you're in widescreen. Fortunately, a gecko code has been developed that removes the heatwave in widescreen, so be sure to use it on any ROM hacks that natively have this problem. Alright, we've gotten all the other specialty categories out of the way. All that remains now is the meat and potatoes of the SMB ROM hack scene: custom levels. Of the 41 level hacks we'll be looking at, 19 of them contain only 30 stages or less. The mode of this strata of data comes out to 20 stages per hack though. In an attempt to go in some sort of functional order, we'll start with the shortest hacks and work our way up. and just go by release date for when ROMs contain the same number of custom levels. Without further ado, let's get going. Oh boy, what a way to start this section off. Okay, so this ROM hack just replaces one of my favorite stages from Super Monkey Ball 2, 8 bracelets. I've mentioned this one before as a shining example of how good Monkey Ball can be at physics-based movement, but this wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I said that I wanted these design concepts expanded. 66 bracelets gives you exactly what you get from the name. And for what it's worth, it was pretty fun to boot up and just see that. Ultimately, though, it is just one gag stage I added to this retrospective purely because I got a laugh out of it. See, guys? I totally had a Christmas special planned for this year. Yep. All intentional. Anyways, as far as little novelty hacks go, this is pretty great. It's only 10 stages, but they're all pretty solid, even if the level theme is a little bare. It really does strike me as like the Christmas DLC things Sega used to do back in the Dreamcast days. Maybe if we'd gotten that Monkey Ball port, we would have seen something like this officially. Ah well, tangent aside, I recommend checking this one out. I'll be honest, I mostly like this one for the aesthetic alone. The idea of a mini-golf themed Monkey Ball world is such a categorically good idea for a game like this, I'm surprised no one else has otherwise tried it. Either way, this one is still a fun, albeit really easy, set of 10 short levels with a fun gimmick. My only complaint is a lack of a skybox, but I'm sure that'd be easy to implement. You could even use one of the ones that's already in the game and it'd be less distracting. Give this one a go. Yeah, I really don't have much to say here, considering I used like 12 save states just to finish the first level, then decided I had my fill. If you want ludicrously difficult stages, this is definitely a place to start. There'll be more like this that we'll look at later on as well, but try this one if you're into that, I guess. Monkey Ball Hyper is fine. It works as a perfectly functional set of 10 levels, plus one finished extra stage, but doesn't do much more beyond that. Campsite is the obvious standout level, but it falls into a similar trap as a lot of these ending exam format stages. I'll go more into that in the later ROM hack though. Overall, this one's a perfectly functional, if perhaps unexceptional, set of 10 stages. Check this one out if you're interested. Here we've got something I wasn't expecting to find. A game jam. For those who've never heard of one, a game jam is a developer meetup / competition where a number of groups, often in teams, develop small games in a limited amount of time. They're a lot of fun to watch, and many of them offer voting to decide which game wins the competition. Here, though, we have similar events where level creators compete by creating stages under otherwise similar rules. Frankly, newer level jams than this are out now, so I'd recommend just giving the latest one a go and catching the next one when it happens. I'll be sure to check these out as they happen if I can. Not sure what happened with the skybox and the park theme. It might have just been incorrectly compiled on my part, but otherwise this hack runs perfectly fine. This one is a super simple 13-stage beginner set. It's got some fun stages like Banana Split and a good show of extra stages, but that's about it. This is probably the most in early development of all the hacks I'm covering in this retrospective, but nonetheless I decided to include it since the levels that it has are surprising in their ingenuity and their variance. You start with this creative use of jump pads commonly found in these ROM hacks for the use of a wall jump system. Then you get this massive sprawling level that I really wish there was more of in Monkey Ball in general. From there you've got branch work for a great maze level that rewards momentum, and confidence, which has a pretty interesting gimmick to it. I don't necessarily mean to oversell this one though, it is still in early development after all. I'd probably recommend you check out these levels in a more complete state via a later release, which may or may not be out by the time of this video's release. Nonetheless, I'm very impressed by what I've seen so far, and can't wait to see what else is in store for this one. Monkey Ball Vintage and World Tour, both by Amphi, are a reasonably solid duo of 20-stage packs, with both primarily shining in their extra stages. I especially like the use of essentially an 2-act structure within them. While not particularly cohesive between the two themes it chose, the idea of using Sonic Mania music, or any Sonic 2-act music in general, to emblemize its 2-act feel was a good one. It also has a handful of momentum-based stages, notably Staircase Chaos, which are just entertaining because fast. Monkey Ball World Tour is overall the weaker of the two in my opinion, but both of these are well polished for their time and have levels still worth playing to this day. This one is more or less a test playground for a few fairly unfinished levels. Some are good, some are bad, and some are just messy. Give this one a look if you are particularly curious, I guess. Here we go. From here on, we're getting into the larger scale and more recent projects. Bad Boon Strikes Back is a great setup, especially compared to most of the previous offerings. Very polished and good-looking levels. The difficulty is on par with a normal beginner plus extra sweet, with levels having accordingly rudimentary challenges to match. Orbits and terrain have pretty cool variants, but that's probably the most noteworthy element level design-wise. Where I think this one really shines, though, is in its aesthetics. I'm a sucker for Sonic level themes in general, so the latter two definitely get a pass, but man, the way the World 1 design changes for a time-of-day effect really does look great. This one is still in development, but nonetheless, I'd recommend giving this one a go, even in its current state if you're interested. Potassium Edition is particularly interesting in the pantheon of brutal Monkey Ball level packs. At first glance, they really don't seem like they'd be that difficult at all. Fend in particular encapsulates this remarkably well in terms of being just so unassuming, yet so ridiculously hard. For that, I definitely respect this one, but it's still pretty hard to recommend to those who aren't interested in crazy difficult stages. Here we have Monkey Ball 651's little brother, I guess. It's a pretty interesting set of 20 experimental levels. I prefer the first 10 for their comparative polish, but honestly, the extra batch has some more interesting gimmicks on display. Overall, it's worth a play, but keep in mind that these stages vary wildly in both difficulty and polish, so just keep that in mind. Again, not entirely sure what happened to the amusement park here, but if I had to guess, it was similar to the build error I experienced with Hyper. A Lion 8 Mies pack is yet another case of a solid, but admittedly unexceptional set of levels with a handful of highlights. To be clear, I'm not implying that any of these hacks are bad. I just have very little to say besides it's fine and it works, and to check it out if you like what you see. Here we have some more modern fare from a newer creator. While perhaps a little unpolished in terms of level design, the aesthetics here are very clean and upscale great. Definitely a plus in my book as an emulation user. Time Bomb is a fun wire stage, and I love the Rube Goldbergian former creator, even if it doesn't play all that great. Overall, just bear in mind that this one is still definitely early on, and as such will have some creature comforts. Now we have a particularly interesting ROM hack that made it here by the skin of its teeth, and, in my opinion, may become very influential to the future of Monkey Ball ROM hacking. 2 years after the last Pseudonymous Christmas pack was released, user Dairoot assembled a team of creators to tackle a new holiday pack project. While currently 25 levels, with another update planned for this year, Merry Mayhem offers an impressive gambit of fun, unique, and even very ambitious level concepts largely thanks to its varied cast of level developers. This can cause some issues in terms of cohesion, and there are some signs of a slightly rushed development to get it out on time last year, but the overall level design on display here still proves to be a great time. Penultimately, we have Super Hecka Mecca, which includes a small handful of beginner and extra stages, most of which appear to be remixes of other levels, and thanks to that, I'm just going to be focusing on advanced for now. Hecka Mecca, much like the majority of the ROM hacks we've looked at previously, achieves a very solid quality throughout its entire run, although, unlike many of the past few, does manage to hold an identity of its own. Stages like Scarf and Roram not only have cool gimmicks and are fun to play, but now I also somewhat get an idea of the creator's style for design, something I've only occasionally experienced in the prior hacks I've discussed. The stage themes are really solid too, and further allow for this hack to gain an individual identity. I don't love every stage here, don't get me wrong, but I can say, with no reservations, that I can recommend this one. Last but not least, we have another newer pack, this time a demo from Killer Awesome. Of the 30 levels on display, the highlight is definitely Fortress and Escape Room, as in general the larger scale levels with more movement rather than static models tend to be stronger overall here. While the checkers and goalposts look nice, the otherwise flat shading and unpolished skyboxes do take me out of the game a bit. Hopefully these improvements aren't too difficult to implement, as otherwise this one is quite solid for its point in development. Well, that's the largest category of ROM hacks down. I know I was extremely brief with most of these releases, but there's two primary factors that cause that. One,
they're short.
And two, most of these are very early in development and or will be updated in the future. I'll look at them more when that happens, but for now, that's all of them. It's worth noting that these ROM hacks also had to deal with the nearly insurmountable challenge of showcasing one's unique style in a set of, at most, 30 levels. Even as someone who hasn't attempted it, I can see how taxing that can be, especially for a new creator. It would probably drive me to perfectionism personally. So, regardless of my comments on any of these ROM hacks, I have a great deal of respect for these creators and their ability to make a set of levels at all. Nonetheless, I feel compelled to offer my recommendations for the small ROM hacks you should check out, assuming you're new to the ROM hacking scene. The Mini Golf Pack, the latest Level Jams Pack, Bad Boon Strikes Back, Merry Mayhem, and Hekamecha are all pretty great and easy to recommend due to the widely available ISOs for all of them. Although, unless you're in a Christmas in July mood, you may just want to wait until this December's update in Merry Mayhem's case. Pinto Beans TBD Pack, Monkeys Need Hard Levels to Breathe 2, and Potassium Edition can also be recommended with their respective provisos. Everything else had most of their best levels ported to the 2020 Community Pack, which is also a perfectly functional place to start if you're new to Monkey Ball ROM hacking. Overall though, that's it for small level packs.